Hi, welcome to Politics NY's newest video interview series, In the Community With, sponsored by AARP. My name is Elizabeth Aloni, and today we are in the community with Council Member Justin Brannan. Justin Brannan represents Council District 43, which includes Bay Ridge, Dyker Heights, Bath Beach, and parts of Bensonhurst. So welcome, Council Member Brannan.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me. And thanks to AARP, our sponsor today.
Absolutely, our pleasure. So let's get started with telling us, what is one of your accomplishments during the past year that you are most proud of?
I'd say, I'm not one of these politicians that makes a lot of big promises that they know they can't keep when they're running for office. And so when I ran for office, I didn't make a lot of big promises. Anything that I talked about was something that I knew I was going to do my best to deliver. And probably the most gratifying, satisfying thing was being able to announce that we're going to build a fifth new school, a new public school in our district. And I think when I was running for office, I promised to build one new school. And now we just announced that we're citing new school number 5.
Wow.
So I'm very proud of that. It takes a lot of hard work behind the scenes and working with different agencies to make it possible. And obviously all the different market fluctuations in real estate and whatnot. But in order to really make sure that our New York City kids have a world-class free public school education, it's important that we push back on our overcrowded classrooms. And the way that you do that is by building more schools. And my district, the school district, District 20 in Southern Brooklyn, is one of the most popular, one of the most highly rated school districts. But because of that, it's also one of the most overcrowded school districts. So it's sort of a catch-22. So building new schools is really the way that you cut down on overcrowding. And it just makes the community better, right? It makes the community safer. It raises people's property values. Young families want to move to a community that has new public schools. So it's really a win-win, and it's something that it's an accomplishment that I'm probably the most proud of this year.
Congratulations. Educating our youth is the answer to a lot of problems. So
that's right.
Wonderful. So what would you say is the number one issue you hear most from your constituents?
I would say obviously quality of life issues. I mean, I think with folks working from home more, they're getting to know their neighborhood over the past 2.5 years. They've gotten to know their neighborhood in a much more intimate way. And they're seeing things that maybe they hadn't noticed before. And things are affecting people differently. I think, look, I think we're all still struggling in our own way coming out of the pandemic, and I think I probably say this once a day, that it's not like any of us can say that the last time we had a pandemic, things were back to normal by now. What the heck is going on? There's no blueprint, there's no rule book for recovering from a global pandemic that is still not fully in the rearview mirror. So it's hard because, I think New Yorkers are resilient by design. We know how to get through a snowstorm. We know how to get through, a terrorist attack. We know how to rise again from these issues, but it's very different because the effects of a pandemic are lasting and there's reverberations there. So, and certainly, quality of life is a very real thing, and I think it's important for me as an elected official to take everyone seriously. I think some elected officials have a problem with, telling people that they're not experiencing what they say they're experiencing, right? Mm-hmm. If someone comes to me and says, I'm feeling a certain way about something, it's not my job to convince them that they should feel differently. It's my job to hear them out, to take them seriously, and to work with them to improve their situation, and just to make their world just a little bit better. I think that's all you can ask for. And I think that as elected officials, Your job, people have problems, right? Your job is to attack the problems, not to deny the existence of the problems to the people that have them. And I think that goes for crime, concerns around crime, quality of life, whatever it may be, or recovering from the pandemic. Taking people seriously, and I think, and that's really what it's all about. And sweating the small stuff, right? Being an elected official is just as much about a long view and these big sweeping policy prescriptions and planting seeds for trees whose shade you may never enjoy, as much as it is dealing with the small stuff, right? The family that walks their kid to school and then gets on the subway and goes to work. That commute, that 20 minutes from their front door to dropping their kid off at school to getting on the subway, that's their immediate reality, right? Everything else is like extra, right? That's their immediate world, what they experience every day. And you need to meet people where they're at and take them seriously. And I think, if anything, that's what the pandemic has really taught us, that we got to be patient with each other, but we have to take each other seriously and look out for each other.
Wow, sounds like acknowledgement and action, two really important things.
Absolutely.
Sure. So that kind of parlays nicely into my next question, which is, what is your top goal for your community in 2023? And I know you're going to be conservative because you're not going to overpromise. So what would you say is your top goal? I'm sure you have many.
Just making sure that I'm, delivering as much money as I can in investments in the community, right? Thus far, we've been able to bring back about $100 million in investments. That's across capital investments to improvements in our parks and playgrounds and building new schools, as much as that is investing in our nonprofit organizations that really do just incredible work. Another thing that I think was only highlighted by the pandemic, right? Seeing, when you're a person who needs help, and you reach out to your local nonprofit, most people, some of these nonprofits are such a part of the fabric of a neighborhood and the communities in which they operate, that people don't even realize that they're not a government agency, right? They don't know that this is a nonprofit. They think it's the department of what ultimately they don't care, right? People have problems. They look for people who can solve those problems. And our nonprofits really helped get us through the darkest days of this pandemic. And we need to be there for them because, I need them to do my job. I need them to support me just like I support them, especially in our growing and vibrant emerging immigrant communities, where there's a certain kind of cultural trust with some of the nonprofits and the programs and support that they provide. So, I'm not a vegetarian. I am a vegetarian, so I don't like to say that I want to keep bringing back the bacon, but bringing back the bacon is really what it's all about. My job ultimately is about service. It's about helping people. It's about making sure that my district is being taken care of, that my district is not being forgotten or neglected. I think sometimes I like to say that there's sometimes a sentiment that Southern Brooklyn, there's a big map, right, in City Hall of the city of New York. And there are times when people feel like Southern Brooklyn might be blocked by like a large plant in the office, that they don't see it, right, that they don't pay attention to it. But I think having this mayor now, having an outer borough mayor who understands that the economic engine for this city still may be Manhattan, but the fuel and the oil for that engine lives and breathes in the outer boroughs, right? That's where people really are raising their family and living and spending money. So it's important that the outer boroughs get the respect that they deserve and the attention they deserve, and that the projects that the projects that you see happening in fancy money-making Manhattan are also happening in the outer boroughs and in districts like mine. So, my thing is that I don't want to hear people say, why can't we have X in Bay Ridge or Dyker Heights or whatever it is, right? Like, why can't we have this in Bensonhurst? I don't want them to go to other places to spend their money or for entertainment or for culture. I want them to be able to do all of that in their own backyard. So making sure that the community has the investments they need to succeed is really what my job is all about. So that's really my laser focus.
That's wonderful. Making the community an even more exciting place to live and work.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So I have a quick rapid fire question. I know it's hard for it to be rapid fire because there are so many wonderful people that you work with throughout the year. But if you could name one person or a team that you work with this past year who you'd like to give a special shout out to, maybe someone who isn't usually recognized, who would you do? Give it to them now.
Oh, that's tough. Geez, there's so many great organizations. I'd probably say, wow, that is, whoever I don't mention though is gonna get upset, you know?
All right, well, I'm just going to tell everyone he didn't mention. I made him pick one. Not his fault. Okay.
You know what? I'd probably shout out the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. I know everyone knows who they are. They're not like a little known group, but for our small businesses that have really just been through hell and back over the past couple of years, they've really been a great resource for questions, as there was always ever changing regulations and rules, and how do the businesses deal with this? And now, how do they come back? How do we roar back? You know, I think I used to own, my wife and I owned a small business for over 10 years in the district. And when I got elected, she took it over fully. She had to close during COVID. She ran an art school for kids, and it was a tiny little classroom. It wasn't safe to keep it open. So we closed it. So I think more than other politicians who say that they know what it's like to run a small business, you know, that's my family, right? That's what I did for 10 years of my life. And that's what my wife still does. So knowing that struggle, knowing what these small businesses go through on a good day, right? Much less 2.5 years of a pandemic when everything got turned upside down. So now going to some new ribbon cuttings and seeing businesses slowly but surely starting to reemerge, has been great. And the chamber has been very helpful in that end. And it's not easy, you know, and I think it's easy for politicians to say that small businesses are the backbone of our community. Like we know, right? But what are you doing about it, right? And what are you showing? How are you showing that actually matters, and that 70 cents of every dollar you spend in your community stays in that community, you know? And I think, you know, I think one of the silver linings of COVID has been, as more people are working from home and working remotely, they've completely built a different and closer relationship with their own neighborhood. And I think it's given a rebirth to their appreciation for the small businesses that make their neighborhood what it is. If we didn't have all these mom and pop shops, we would look like Anytown, USA, you know? And I think understanding that if you love a neighborhood and you love the feel and the vibrancy and the whatever it is, that's something special about a neighborhood, it's because of the small businesses. They're the ones that line the avenues and give a neighborhood a certain feeling. So any organization that does that support is someone that I'm going to shout out, you know.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, right on.
I have 2 questions from our sponsors at AARP New York.
Sure.
The first is that the city's Department of Aging, which supports a wide range of programs designed for older residents, receives approximately 0.05% of the budget, despite the fact that 20% of the city residents are over the age of 65. So what will you prioritize in the next New York City budget to ensure that more resources are going to go to this population? And in what specific programs will you increase that investment?
It's a great question, Elizabeth. We're all going to be seniors someday, right? You know, and these are, you know, when I go around the district visiting the different senior centers, you know, I always say, look, you guys are the ones that built this city, this state, this country, literally and figuratively built what we've got now. The society that we have now was built by seniors, you know, and I think, look, I think the city has to, I think yesterday, 2 days ago or something, there was a hearing in the council when we learned from the Department for the Aging that this is the first time that seniors were going to be, that there's a waiting list for seniors who need meals, who need home delivered meals. So that's a real problem, right? Food insecurity is something that was only exacerbated by COVID, right? You had folks who were struggling long before COVID, but COVID was really low tide, right? And it sort of exposed how many people are really struggling and living on the margins, especially our seniors, our homebound seniors. So making sure that seniors have food, making sure that they have access to food. If they're homebound, they can't get out, making sure that the city can deliver them meals is number one priority, right? And I think that's going to be something that we really dive into in the next budget, making sure seniors have what they need. I feel that there's an unwritten covenant really with our seniors and the city that they built, that we need to be there for them, right? They're there for us. We need to be there for them now. And I think the city really has an obligation to prove that. And I think addressing food insecurity and the lasting effects of the pandemic as it relates to food insecurity really needs to be our number one priority. And in neighborhoods like mine, that's a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community, making sure that we're always thinking. I always say that if you're designing things and you're thinking about things through the lens of kids and seniors, it's going to be better for everybody else, right? Everyone else in the middle will benefit from it if you're thinking about public safety and street safety and support services in a way that benefits children and seniors. So that's really my North Star. But I think the food piece is going to be a big deal in the next budget, and something that this council is going to fight for.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And some of the things you're saying kind of move into the next question, which is about ageism, because it really does permeate all aspects of life for New York residents, from ageism in the workplace to how we design, as you're saying, designing streets and public transportation systems, to how services are promoted and access to build environment and more. So what is one ageism issue that has an impact on your community, and how would you address it?
I mean, I think, look, there's a lot of folks, like my grandmother is 99 and she still talks about seniors like, oh, the seniors. I'm like, Grandma, you're 99. Like, you've been a senior for 4 years.
Senior.
Right. So there's a lot of seniors who are still looking for work, are not ready to retire, or they retired from their job they worked for 30, 40 years, and now they still have skills and energy, and they want to contribute and be a part of the community. I think it's also about, getting our businesses to look at seniors in a way that, like, it's just a hell of a lot of wisdom and experience that comes along with hiring a senior. And I think a lot of intuition, so I think making it easier or encouraging or incentivizing businesses to hire seniors who are looking for work, even if it's part-time work, is really important, because it's really heartbreaking, to have someone come to your office who's, officially a senior, but, they're 65 years old, 70 years old. They're not old, right? But now that, the society considers them seniors. Okay, great. They still have a lot to give. They've still got decades to live and to contribute. What are we doing to make sure that they can continue to be challenged, and that they continue to be, vibrant, part of our vibrant community? And I think incentivizing businesses to hire seniors is one way that you do that, because it's something that's really heartbreaking when we see folks reaching out, and it seems pretty clear that they've got doors shut in their face simply because, their resume is 10 pages long because they're a senior. That's experience, that's wisdom. You should hire that person, especially if they're only looking for part-time work. So that's something that I'd like to see, especially, I think, talking about aging in place and how many seniors who want to stay in the house that they've always lived in. They want to stay in their community. They don't want to go and live in a retirement community down south or in New Jersey or something. They want to stay in their neighborhood. But they need to make money. They need to work, right? They can't live on their retirement check. So that's something very important. And I think it's also something that you can do locally, right? You don't have to sort of wait for the cavalry to come and roll out some fancy program. You can work with your local businesses to try to connect seniors to jobs, that are to help seniors that are looking for work.
Great. That's a terrific plan. Well, thank you so much, Councilmember Brannan. I really appreciate spending some time with you, and thank you for answering the questions, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. If I don't see you, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and thanks, everybody.
Same to you. Happy holidays.
Take care. Bye-bye.